Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Nasser, and this is the Azure Cleveland User Group. A little bit about the group. We meet monthly, typically every second week of the month. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, so it's open to a variety of different expertise levels, whether you're a working professional, a hobbyist, or a student. Everyone's welcome to attend. We cover a variety of topics related to Azure, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. You can find all the meeting information posted at meetup.com at the link listed at the bottom of the slide. As always, we'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsors, PostSharp and DevExpress, for sponsoring the post-meeting raffle prizes, and those will be given away using the eval forms. We'd also like to thank the .NET Foundation for sponsoring the Meetup website, and last but not least, NIS Technologies for sponsoring the virtual meeting space. Please keep in mind, participation is always encouraged, and the only stupid question is the one not being asked. However, when not speaking, kindly ask you to mute your microphones just to avoid any background noise and any other distractions. As always, we like to keep it casual but organized, so feel free to chime in with any comments or jump in with questions. However, we want to give our speaker enough time to go through the slides and the demo. And lastly, the question on everyone's mind, is the meeting being recorded and will it be posted on YouTube? And the answer to that is yes. So for tonight's feature presentation, we have AI tools in Azure, presented by David Giard. David is a Microsoft Partner Solution Architect. He has over 30 years of experience working in the Microsoft stack of technologies. He's also a frequent speaker at conferences, code camps, and user groups worldwide. In addition, he is the host and producer of two shows, Technology and Friends, as well as Gcast. And if that's not enough, he's also the co-author of RealWorld.NET, C#, and Silverlight. And you can find a lot of his blog posts posted at davidgiard.com. And so with that, David joins us from the great city of Chicago. Glad to have you with us, David.
I am excited to be here. Let's talk about artificial intelligence, particularly the tools that Microsoft offers to support artificial intelligence. This is me. My name is David. I work for Microsoft. You can find me online. Just if you can spell my name right, it's easy to find me. I'm pretty much everywhere at David Giard, including my blog right there. I talk about AI and a lot of other things. I have, as Sam mentioned, I have a couple of TV shows. I hope you watch them and subscribe to them. One is I'll interview smart people about technology. The other one, I just show simple screencasts, or maybe sometimes not simple, but usually fairly short screencasts to show you how to do something with technology. But today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. And before we talk about that, I want to just talk about this. There's sort of a revolution going on. You're hearing a lot of hype around AI, artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI. A lot of it has to do with our friends over at ChatGPT, or the company's called OpenAI. They've created ChatGPT and they've created DALL-E, a couple of really cool generative AI tools. And Microsoft has partnered with OpenAI. And I use that word deliberately. We've partnered with them. We didn't acquire the company. We invested, I think we got like 49% of the company. It's still an independent company, and it benefits us because we have access to all this cool technology that now we're building into Azure. It benefits them because they're able to deploy their services onto Azure, which makes them very highly scalable and highly reliable. So it's pretty cool. And this revolution is, it's not the first IT revolution. You know, we had personal computers back in the 1980s, changed the world really, you know, democratized compute power. We had the internet that came along, you know, that became a thing probably the late 90s, I think, with a Navigator browser, the smartphones. You know, one day Steve Jobs stood up on stage and said, check this thing out. It's a phone and it's everything else. Cloud computing, about 25 years ago, cloud computing sort of changed the way that we think about whether we're going to host our own data centers versus doing them, versus renting that space in some highly scalable, highly reliable data center provided by a third party, and now artificial intelligence. And what all these things have in common is that even though they seemed to come on really quickly, they actually had been around a long time before the quote revolution started. Personal computers have been around for a long time. Smartphones have been around for a long time before Steve Jobs sort of captured the imagination of people. EDI was doing time sharing on mainframes long before cloud computing became this ubiquitous thing it is. And the same thing with artificial intelligence. Conceptually, it's been around for thousands of years. In the Odyssey, there are stories of thinking computers, but realistically, about 50 years, people have been doing artificial intelligence. But there's just been so much excitement recently, a lot of it due to this company OpenAI, and it's now permeated the popular press. And so your boss and your grandmother and your uncle are all reading about it and they're thinking, what is this ChatGPT thing? What is this thing that understands large language models? What does that mean? How does it help me? And so to them it's new, but it's not really new. I want to start with a couple of definitions, just to make sure we're all on the same page, because I'll use these terms a lot. The first one, of course, is artificial intelligence. And what this means is the ability for computers to seem to think like humans. We're not quite there yet. They're still just computers, and they're just doing what they tell them to do, but they have some aspects that are typical of humans and have been historically atypical of computers, like the ability to do reasoning, to be able to figure things out without you explicitly giving those instructions, to reason from patterns of data, the ability to learn from their mistakes. So if they make a mistake, you tell it, oh, that's wrong, it could do a better job next time. It's self-corrected. It's algorithms, which is pretty darn cool. And these things are getting better all the time. That's artificial intelligence. And then generative AI, I mentioned that earlier. These are things like ChatGPT and DALL-E, which are for generating text or images. But this is a subset of artificial intelligence that allows you to create content, which can be text or images or audio, and it can be video. And these are, the way these things work is by looking at the patterns of lots of data, looking at lots of text and structured sentences and figuring out this is the way that a language like English works. So now it understands not only the words themselves, but how those words fit together and what are the synonyms of the word. So it can infer the meaning of a question or a sentence without having to, even if it's phrased in different ways. Same thing with images. It's looked at lots of pictures of cats, so it understands what a cat looks like, and it can then generate an image of a cat that doesn't look exactly like anyone's has seen, because it knows that a cat is fuzzy and has ears shaped like this and whiskers and so on. And then for the text, which is mostly what we're talking about here, large language model are the foundation of that. Large language models are LLM. These are models that are built on studying lots and lots of text in a human readable language. Sometimes we call that a natural language. English, for example, is a natural language. But the tools we're talking about aren't limited to English. They work in dozens of languages. So if you want to do the same thing in Spanish or Arabic or Mandarin, they'll work in those as well. So I just want to start with those definitions right there. And then these are some of the problems in your business that you can use AI, generative AI, to solve. So increasing productivity, automating processes, getting a better customer experience, and saving time. So first thing here, you want to increase productivity. There's all sorts of things to do that. If code generation, you want to write some new code, there are generative AI tools. You can just tell it the code you want to write, the language you want to write it in, the libraries you want to use, and it can generate the code. Not perfect, but it can get you a lot of the way there. Generating reports from data very quickly. This is we call this developer velocity, this idea that you can increase your developer velocity by using a generative AI tool to kickstart this. So you don't have to be going to your search engines to find out what's the syntax for this thing, for this language, and how to do this thing. Automated processing. This is great in things like if you've got a legal organization wants to read all kinds of hundreds of legal documents to prepare a summary of those. Of course, could take you days as a human being to read that. Computers can read that really quickly, and using large language models, so they can understand that and they can generate a summary of those documents. But they also do things like looking for patterns in financial transactions, so they can detect fraud because they understand that, oh, a legitimate credit card transaction looks like this, a fraudulent transaction looks different. People using their credit card within a short period of time, miles apart, for example, or detect fraud. Just seeing those kinds of patterns that computers could do very, very quickly if they understand the patterns. Better customer experiences. A lot of people complain about the bots online, these chat bots, because they think that they're impersonal. And I kind of agree with, I tend to agree with that fact that they're not as personal as a human being talking to you. However, human beings don't scale very well. There's only a finite number of humans that can answer your phone and talk to you directly. And if it comes down to a question of, can I chat with a bot and get the bot to answer my question within seconds or minutes versus waiting online for 15 or 20 minutes before a human being can answer it? Well, that's an easy choice. The experience of talking to a bot and getting your questions answered very quickly is a lot better than waiting, even though it's more personal than waiting for a human being to answer that. And a good chatbot system, of course, will try to answer the question. And if it can't answer the question, then it'll fall back to a human. Okay, I don't have that answer. I can't generate from the knowledge that I have. Please wait, and then you can wait the 15 minutes for a human being. And then just generating creative content. I use this quite a bit for things like generating emails or generating outlines or generating a description of a meeting that I want people to attend. I might take 15 minutes to write an email to a customer because I want it to be just right, but telling a tool like Copilot for M365 to generate an email and just telling it the information I wanted there, I want it to sound professional, maybe I want it to sound a little bit apologetic because of that. This in seconds, a generative AI tool can do that. So there's all sorts of things that can make your life easier with generative AI. These are this is a partial list of some of the tools that are available from Microsoft. They all have some Azure component. They're hosting something in Azure, and some of them you'll use inside of the portal. Some of them have their own user interface, and I'll show you some examples after I'm done with this slide. I don't have a whole lot of slides here. But before I do that, I want to specifically talk about a couple of these things. And one of them is search, because search is an AI tool, or it's becoming an AI tool, that it's evolving a lot. We started out, we had keyword searches. So tools like Bing and Google and some of the predecessor search engines that were out there, they did a really good job of indexing the internet. And you could enter a phrase and it would return images and links to articles and maybe some shopping sites and some maps. It'll return information related to whatever word or phrase you put in there. But you have to be pretty specific about what you want. And what comes back are just discrete pieces of information, a link to an article, a picture, a spot on a map. And if you want to do something more complex than that, like understand a complex topic, then your job is to look at multiple links, read the articles behind them, and kind of figure out from that what's the general purpose and what are the important parts of those articles. Well, a generative AI and large language models can help with that, because not only do they give you the ability to search beyond just keywords, so you don't have to know exactly what you're searching for. You can say it, you can phrase a question in a natural language like English, and but it can also aggregate information from multiple articles and multiple links and provide you information in a natural language like English, so it's more understandable. And it can often save you the trouble of going and reading through half a dozen articles or a dozen articles, because it'll do that. So one of the ways that you can do this is a tool called Bing Copilot, which is built on top of these GPT models that were originally created by OpenAI. And you can do things like here, suggest an outline for a presentation on artificial intelligence, and it will, there's a lot of information about artificial intelligence. It understands what is AI, and it also understands English. And so it's returning in paragraphs in natural language a group of, it also understands what is a presentation. So these bullets will each represent a slide in my presentation. And so if you want to do a presentation, this is a good way to kickstart it. Ordinarily, when I want to do a presentation, I'll start in the same way. I'll do some research. I'll think, what are the key points? And I'll create a bulleted list, which I ultimately turn into slides. This can save me a lot of time to kickstart that. Well, now that's good, But Bing Copilot by default is limited to information that's available on the public internet. It's very useful stuff, lots of stuff on the internet. But what if you wanted to expand your search beyond the public internet? What if you wanted to do something like search for information inside of your company's human resources system, or inside of your company's databases that are behind a firewall, or inside of a set of documents that you've got stored in blob storage? Well, to do that, you can use something called a RAG pattern. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, in which it's not searching the internet. Instead, it is searching your proprietary databases, the ones that you tell it to search. So you're enhancing, it's still using these large language models to understand questions in languages like English, and still returning it in a natural language like English, but the search itself is being done inside of your databases that you tell it, that you point it to. Tools like Azure Search can do that. And this is the model for doing it here. We've got Azure OpenAI, which understands large language models. So if somebody types in a question, it'll understand what that question is and figure out how to search for it and pass that information on to Azure AI Search, which is a tool that is smart enough to query multiple types of databases and just raw documents, even pictures of documents or PDFs, Word documents, text documents, all sorts of things, and return information, and then using it Azure OpenAI's large language model feature to return information in a natural language. So you've got this orchestrator that's handling that. You do have a bit of code to write, but it's extremely powerful. And the other nice thing about Azure Search is it will respect the security of all these documents. So if you've got records in a database or documents in a folder and only certain people have rights to those, then when someone tries to write a query that tries to do a prompt that's going to return documents they don't have rights to, it will not return that information. It'll respect the security implementation that you've set up in your system. And of course, you can do this, and you can also implement that, or have that in addition to doing keyword searches. So in your orchestrator, you could say, well, sometimes I want information on the internet. I just want to use a keyword search. Sometimes I want information internally. You can mix and match. It's up to you how to do that hybrid search. And you can write code to do that, or there are actually some low-code tools which I'll show you that'll help you with that. Here's an example here. One of the companies I work with is called Elastic, and maybe I want to say, how do I change my health benefits at Elastic? Well, that information might not be available on the private internet, but because we've configured this to point to a private internal website that shows all the HR information and all their benefits information, it's able to return in English how to change my health benefits within this company. Very cool stuff. All right, that's all done using Azure AI Search. Another tool is called Azure AI Services. This used to be called Cognitive Services, so you may be familiar with it. Cognitive Services has been out for a few years, but it's been rebranded and it's been beefed up, and it'll do things. These are simple API calls that will do things like text to speech, speech to text, translating languages. It'll analyze images to do things like finding out what information, what objects are in the image, finding the faces, finding the parts of the faces, recognizing people. It'll do content safety and moderation, so that if you want to examine a bunch of documents to see if there's anything inappropriate in there, that might be really nice if you're allowing people to upload documents or pictures and then showing those on a public website. You probably don't want them to upload pornography. It'd be a nice tool to have it run this service. Just call an API and say, hey, is this a dirty picture? Yes or no. It actually returns a score. You can decide, if it's a high probability that's inappropriate, kill it with fire. If it's a low probability that it's inappropriate, just go ahead and publish it. And if maybe somewhere in between, maybe drop that in a queue and let a human being look at it. Things like that. It'll do document analysis, even to the point where you can give it templates of documents to say, okay, I've got invoices, the customer name is here, the address is here, the invoice amount is here, and the line items are here, and it'll look in those spots and it'll understand these are, pull that out into a meaningful JSON document that says, here's the actual data that's contained in these pictures of the invoices. Copilot is a suite of tools that will perform generative AI and will understand large language models. And there's a bunch of them. This is just a partial list here. GitHub Copilot is designed for generating code. One of the reasons that Microsoft bought GitHub is to analyze all of the code in the public repositories. So if there's code in these public repositories, then Microsoft these tools have analyzed that, and they've used that to understand how to write C# code, JavaScript code, Rust code, Python, and all these different languages. And so now you can say things like, write me some code that does this. Describe what you want to write, the language you want to write it in, and it'll create some code for you. Copilot for M365. M365 are basically the Microsoft Office suites of tools, Teams and Word and Excel and Outlook. And these are tools that will help you to generate documents. Sometimes generate documents from other documents, sometimes from a description. It can analyze documents, all sorts of things. It can summarize meetings. I'll show a demo of that. It's pretty cool. Copilot security is using large language models to ask questions about the security of your specific organization. You point it to your Active Directories, and it will, or to your Azure accounts, and it'll analyze it and tell you what it finds is wrong. It integrates with Microsoft Defender, and it'll tell it to you in natural language like English, so that you can actually take the steps to remediate problems and potential problems. And then Windows Copilot is a lot like Bing Chat, or it was a Copilot for Bing, where it's a general purpose search that instead of using keyword searches, it allows you to ask questions in natural language and return those questions in natural language. And you can even point it to your work API, your work document. So you can there's a pub, what is it? I think it's one is work and one is, I forgot the other word, but the one of just searches the web. One of them also searches for your internal organization. So if I want to look at information specific to Microsoft, then I could do so using Windows Copilot. All right, and then there are a bunch of low-code, no-code solutions. These three are all the Copilot Studio, Azure OpenAI Studio, and Azure AI Studio. They're all very similar in the sense that you can create a large language model, and you can index some data, and it allows you to search through that data using natural language. They differ only in their flexibility and their ease of use. And this is an ascending order of flexibility and descending order of ease of use. So Copilot Studio is a very simple thing you can use if you just want to quickly create a chat bot. You can do that. Azure OpenAI Studio has a bit more complexity, and Azure AI Studio has even more complexity. All right, and then I also want to talk a little bit about responsible AI. I mentioned part of that earlier, that Microsoft Azure Search will respect the security of the data that it's indexing and not return data that, if somebody asks for data, it won't return data that they don't have access to. But there's other things as well. There's privacy issues. If you have got data that's personally identifiable information, you want to protect that. Inclusive information. When we're generating language, when we're generating text, sometimes there's a problem with language that can be either hostile, or it can be hurtful, or it can be just not inclusive. If we've got, I'll give one example is that, imagine if you've built your model on job data. I want to know all of the information. What's the criteria that goes into being a good software engineer? And a good way to do that is to index all the software engineers out there, look at their resumes and see what qualifications they have and what their ratings are, and see who makes a good software engineer. They should be smart and well-educated and articulate. Those are all good things. But the existing data might suggest that a lot of men are software engineers, a lot more men in the software engineering world than there are women, just because historically that's been true. Well, the data, all this AI knows is the data it's given, and it might infer that, oh, I guess men are better at software engineering than women, which is not true, but the data suggests that. So you may want to be taking a look at that and see if that's a good way to do that. And one way to do that is to just be transparent about where you're getting your data from and how it's being used, what are the limitations of that data. And if there's a problem, have somebody that's accountable for it, have somebody that's responsible for correcting those problems. So that for example, might be a problem that can be addressed. And that also deals with fairness. That would be unfair to people. It happens to be a gender. I'm a man, I'm applying for nursing roles. Well, there's nothing inherently female about nurses, but the data might suggest that females are better suited than nurses. And sometimes these things can cause safety issues. If you give a wrong information that says, turn left instead of right, you might take you 10 more minutes to get to your destination. And that's not a big deal. But if you're looking for information on how to do a medical procedure, the wrong information could cost a life, or how to design an airplane, the wrong information could, cause a catastrophic failure here. So being aware of what are the risks involved and mitigating those appropriately is important. I could do a whole talk on just responsible AI. And then the last thing is I think this is my last slide. All these tools that are indexing your data are not going back into the model that Microsoft is using for other customers. If you're using this information, if you're showing it your code, you're showing your HR systems, those are just yours. That information is not being used back in the model system. And the data that's being used to train these models either comes from GitHub public repositories, or it comes from Bing search engines, or it just comes from the public internet. And then there's all just the basic stuff that you expect in Azure. Encrypted keys and private VPNs available. You can set role-based access controls on your documents, all these compliance things. This, of course, doesn't free you from being responsible about security, but there is some basic protection that's already implemented, and the tools are available for you to make this even more secure. All right, those are my slides. Does anybody have questions at this point before I start some demos?
Just one quick question. So you said searches are not stored when we use Copilot. So let's say
I said what is not stored?
Search. Actually, if you do something, a search in.
It is stored temporarily, so you can, for example, ask follow-up questions. So it's stored locally for if you have a chat bot and you don't have to type questions a second time, you can say, give me more information on this, and it'll understand this refers to the question that you just asked. What I said is that that is not that's not captured and used to build our models. That information is private to you, and we're not going to use it to put it back into the models that we're building.
Okay, got it. My second doubt is let's say if someone actually accidentally shares some private links during the search option. So is there a way actually we can filter it out, or is that actually indexed somewhere, or
it is indexed? It's indexed in Azure Search, and the it's hard to know the scenario you're talking about, but if those if that data is already secured, like let's say that I try to run a query, I try to go into some kind of search engine that you built, some RAG search engine that you built that queries your company's private document store, and I ask it for, tell me all of the sales information for the last 12 months, and some of that information is restricted to me, then I just won't get that. It just simply will not return that.
Got it. Thanks, David.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's do some demo. I think I'll just close that right here. And I wanted to start. This was a cool demo here, but let me see. They took it down. Where's my deck again? So I have this right here, and this used to actually point to a website, and now it just points to the source code of the website, which is really unfortunate. But essentially what this does is if you deploy this locally, it should work. I haven't tried that yet, but it should. What happened was that in 1963, U.S. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. He was shot in Dallas, Texas, and the U.S. government had a bunch of documents. They investigated, of course, and they have a bunch of documents related to that investigation, and they were sealed. The public could not see those documents for 50 years, and when those 50 years were up, in 2013, they unsealed the documents and made them available publicly. Almost everyone that was involved in it is dead now, and so that's and this project indexes those documents, and it uses Azure Search to do the indexing. So not only can you ask English language questions, but you can ask it to find information. It understands information that's related to other information using vector searches. And so I let me see if I did find at least a video that showed this, which I have open somewhere here, not here. This is the video right here. And so it used to be that a link would show this website right here, and you could do searches on something like, let me turn the volume off. And so if you searched on, click on something here. Let me just jump ahead. Come on. There we go. So here is searching searching for Oswald. Oswald we assume he's the man that killed John F. Kennedy. We don't really know because he himself was murdered before it went to trial. And you can see that it's not only text, that was typewritten text and handwritten text, notes in the margin, but also, if I go back here, pictures of Lee Harvey Oswald right here. So all sorts of things, metadata that's indexing. And then this one looks like it's also looking for Oswald and GP floor. So information that's related to Oswald that, if I skip ahead a little bit, because it understands, this here, let's see, it understands the relationship between these things. And there was a woman that was involved in, I guess that's, I'll put a link to this in the chat if you want to watch this video. How do I do the chat? Right here. Put that in the chat if you wanted to watch the video. But this actually explains it, and I was hoping to show it to you in real time, but apparently they took it down. Maybe it was just too much traffic for it to handle. But because it's using a vector search that understands relationships, you can search for Oswald and the people that were involved. There's a woman named Sylvia who apparently was a friend of Oswald and met with him a few days before. And there's some suspicion that maybe she was also involved in the assassination. And we can find documents and pictures and PDFs and text that are related to the two of them as well. So all sorts of really powerful stuff right here. So if you want to go, I'll also put this GitHub repository here, which not only has the source code, but also has a nice description of how it was built and what it is supposed to do right here. So I'll put that also in the go-to chat right here. And there we go. All right, so let me close that. So the next demo I want to show is a tool called Microsoft Designer. And Microsoft Designer, bring up a browser here. I can get to this from designer.microsoft.com. And this is a generative AI tool that works on images. And I can do things like really specific stuff like creating icons or creating social media posts and stickers. I like just the general purpose one here, just to create images. And I can do things like enter a description. I can also modify the size that I want. I'll take the default size. And there's an example of one, a fox wearing a shiny jumpsuit in light purple, light blue colors with an astronaut mask 3D, something that playful. But I used this, in fact, all of the images in my slide deck, not these, but most of the images in my slide deck, like this one and this one and this one, they were all generated using the designer tool. So if I come in here and I say, I'll try to regenerate something like this. I'll say a robot. Actually, I always say, somebody told me that being polite actually gives you better results. And I can't prove that's true, but I think it's always a good practice to be polite anyway, you know, so this is good reinforcement. Please create a photograph of a robot painting another robot in an art studio with light streaming through a large window. This is pretty much the prompt that I used to generate this image right here. It returns 4 pictures, and what's interesting about this is it probably won't return the same picture. There is some randomness to what it's going to generate. This is completely an original picture. I mean, it's based on the fact that it's seen lots of pictures of robots and it's seen lots of pictures of painters and windows and light coming through windows. So it understands that. Its large language model understands this. And you can see that none of these 4 pictures is actually the one that I started with, or the one that I use. I got 4 different ones. And in fact, I think there's a regenerate on here somewhere about regenerate, maybe not. And so this is really useful for creating content. I could I could draw this myself, of course, for artistic. I could scour the web for something that looked like what it was, but I wanted something really specific. And so that's why I was really specific in my description of what I wanted. And then I could just download it or copy the image and paste it into my document, into my thing there. And that'd be great if you're part of an advertising agency and you wanted to have a really quick picture of toilet paper outside under a tree with soft lighting, maybe in the style of a painting. You know, you could do the same. Like, let's do this. Instead of a photo, in the style of Van Gogh, and it's seen a lot of images. Generate. It's seen a lot of Vincent Van Gogh paintings, and so it should have something with maybe some the broad brushstrokes and the swirls that Van Gogh was very famous for, and do something like that. So you can get really creative here. The better your prompts are, the better it's going to be. So while that's running, let me look back at my slides and see that the next demo I wanted to show is GitHub Copilot. I really like GitHub Copilot. This is one that I use a lot. So here we go. This one, you can see it's got this interpreted it as the painting should look like Van Gogh, as opposed to the picture that I was drawing was looking like Van Gogh. But you can see in here that looks like Van Gogh's Starry Night, famous Starry Night picture. So does that. So it is pretty cool. And you see it captured the previous one. I've got some history in here as well. All right, let me show you the GitHub Copilot demo. This is really cool. In here, I'll just create a file here and I'll call it demo.py. I'm going to create a PowerShell file. And I guess this is a new laptop here, so it's asking me to install the PowerShell extension. I probably should do that so it understands. And that was, choose a version right here. Well, I could still use this. I don't think I'll be able to run it because I don't have PowerShell installed. But what I will do is I'll come in here and I'll say something like, $Jan equals 1 and $Feb equals 2 and $March equals 3 and can I do this? I might not have this. I should have used my old laptop. Looks like I don't have the Copilot extension installed in here. Well, let me see if I can do that really quickly. If I come to here to extensions, and I'll install my Copilot extension. I thought it would just migrate that. Let me install it. Oh, here's a lesson. That's how you install the GitHub Copilot. I've got to sign in here. Wants to sign in? Yes, I allow that. And let's try that. See if that content works. Authorize. And it also wants to go back to Visual Studio Code. Has granted the permissions. Okay, it's telling me that. Okay. Let's see if that works now. So now it looks like I do have that extension installed. And what if I hit Shift Enter? Is that going to do something here? I'll click on that right there. Let me try this here. I'll say create a hash table with months and their corresponding numbers here. And now it only did the first 3 months, probably because it saw that, and I'll take that, but I'll accept that right here. Months equals that. But really what I wanted was, let me see if it'll infer this if I say APR equals 4, MAY equals 5. What will that do? No, I don't want that. I'm hoping it'll do that. It's not doing what I was hoping to. So it's hit or miss. Sometimes it does something that what I really like it to do. But let's try this. Let's try something a little bit more practical for this group. How about, I'll just put a comment here rather than doing you could do the Copilot here, right click Copilot, and where is it? File the chat, explain this, fix this, generate doc. I think it's start in there to end and bring this up and put something in, or I can just put a comment in and say something like log into Azure. Maybe I've never worked with PowerShell before. I don't know the syntax for doing that. Come on. Oh, it doesn't like that. Let's try it again. Let's just put it in here. Log into Azure. And it's going to generate that. And there it is. This is a connect-AZ account. And let's see, you know what? I don't like that command. There's actually other commands for doing that. You chat this command, connect.azure. All right, let's. I can insert it into terminal and test it right here. It'll add that here. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, here's my problem. Because I didn't install PowerShell. Couldn't create connection to server. Right here. Connection got disposed. Ah, shoot. Let me do that one more time. Right here. Apply. I'll just add that to this connect.azure. So there's an account here to do that, and I can add some more things like how about click on this little icon. I click on this icon like this, or I can right click and say Copilot, add file to chat, or start an editor right here, or I can hit Control I. But I'll just do this, and I'll say create a resource group named Cleveland RG, and let's see, in the East US region, like that. And there it is. Let's accept that. So that's kind of nice. You can see this is really nice if I don't understand the language that well. If I'm working with PowerShell for the first time, and maybe I want to say create resource group if the resource group does not exist. So the more explicit you can be in what you want, the better off it's going to be at creating that thing. And this might not be 100% accurate, but it'll get you 80% of the way there almost every time. So this is pretty nice. Let's see, how about, And then we could do things like, let's see, I can highlight a line of a bunch of code here, and under Copilot, I can explain this code. It'll output information. Pretty simple here, but imagine if you've ever inherited a large amount of code and want to be able to explain it very quickly, you can do that. You can generate docs. Generating tests is really nice. So there's a test suite, which is a test that it logged into Azure and then created a resource group right here. There are things like, all right, that's all for PowerShell. Let me do something a little bit more practical or that I like to do. I have an example here of some C# code, and the C# code has a couple of programs right here. So let's see. If I say, which one is this? Pet proxy. This, if you look at this code here, it's got a method called getPet, and it's an asynchronous method, and it just calls an HTTP endpoint, pet/ID. You pass in an ID, and it calls this URL with the get method, and gets a response, and then checks to see if the response is okay, and then what does it do? If the response is not okay, then it generates an error message, writes it out, and throws an exception. If it is okay, then it reads the response into this variable, writes it out, and returns that response. All right, so that's what it's going to do for pet proxy. But let me do the other one. There's another one, store proxy. That's unfinished. Get order. It does kind of the same thing. It calls an endpoint, store/order/ the ID that I pass in, but it doesn't do anything else. And so what I want to do is to add to this and say something like handle the case where the response is not HTTP okay. Right here, gives a little text, and there it is. Let's take that right here, and that's pretty good. If it's the response is not a 200, if it is a 200, it'll return it, and if it's not, it's going to throw an exception. This isn't exactly the way that this other one did. You notice that pet proxy here, it did something a little bit different. It logged it first, and then it threw an exception. And if I want to do it that way, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Here it just threw an exception. Let me delete this and do exactly the same thing. But this time, the only difference is that I've got this pet proxy open here. So if I right click and say, handle the same message, handle the case where the response is not HTTP okay, it didn't do that. Oh, come on. Let's regenerate, see if it does it again. And now it is doing it. So this is what I wanted. I think response order gave more error. This is identical, not what I was hoping for. Attach here code. It's a little bit different, but it isn't emulating this. So generally what happens is it'll understand the patterns you used here and it'll respect those patterns. Say, this is the guy that David likes to do things. And so this is the way that I'm going to do it. But it's not doing that. Unfortunate. Let me try another one here. Let me just add a file, one more GitHub Copilot file. I'll say test.htm. Now here, and then you can see that one shortcut is telling me Control-I is a shortcut for this. And here I'll say build a page titled "Let's Learn About AI." How about that? Let's try that. And it created that page right here, which may or may not be exactly what I want, but it gives me a good starting point. All right, this is my this is GitHub Copilot. Let me try another one here. I'm going to go to, what was next on my slide deck? I will go to GitHub Copilot. I'm going to skip that one for now because of time. Let me go to M365 Copilot, because I think the Copilot tools are pretty darn cool. So if I go into Word, right here, I've got this Copilot icon up here, and I could do something like create a document that describing responsible AI. It should be 2 to 3 pages. Just to be nice, I'll say, please. Maybe that's what I did wrong last time. And this can be a real time saver. Somebody says, I want a quick summary of this. I wouldn't use this for a blog post. I wouldn't use anything like this to take credit for it, but I might use it as a starting point. So I can copy this and paste it into my document. Right here is a good starting point. Generally, what I would do is maybe create a, please generate an outline of an article about generative AI, something like that. So I use it as a Kickstarter, and then I might flesh it out like that. Just copying this and putting it on my blog feels really unethical, but copying, using an outline as a starting point doesn't feel unethical at all. And then maybe I would also take something, and I won't use that one here. I'll close, oh, I didn't close that, actually. Come back here. I can say, with this document open, I could say something like, analyze the document, rewrite it for a 7th grade audience, something like that. And that might help me with the style of the document, maybe add some humor to it, things like that. And here it is changing it a little bit on here, and I could copy that and replace this document with this. Another thing you could do is in PowerPoint is, let me save this. As long as I save this in the cloud, I'll put this in my OneDrive. I'll just put it in the root of the rundown. I'll say Cleveland demo right there. And then if I go into PowerPoint, I can actually generate a presentation based on it, because it has a Copilot as well. And I could say, please create a presentation based on, if I hit the slash, then I should be able to, what do I call that, Cleveland. I might need to wait for it to index. It's not showing up, probably because it hasn't been indexed yet. So I'll just do, I'll do my status report here. Don't look at my status report, but there's information in here that, and it'll generate a presentation based on that. And I don't recognize that wording. What do you mean based on? How about, please create a new presentation from slash, let's try that document, see if it understands that. Doesn't record the wording is something I could do. Here are some examples. Create a presentation from. Isn't that what I said? Create a presentation from. Let's do that. Click on that suggestion and do that. Oh, I like that phrasing. At least it gave me a suggestion here. and it's drafting a presentation, highlights, and last week's and next week, and so on. Content maybe overview, upcoming issues, and there's my weekly status report with information based on, if I wanted to show this to the leadership team, that's something, highlights, last week overview, that's it. And I won't show you what I did my status report because it's not really that interesting. It's just the idea that we create these things from it. All right, let me find something else that I can do in here. Oh, I'll do this. I'll go to the Azure portal because this is an Azure user group, and I will say portal.azure.com. And in here I can create either an Azure OpenAI service. I've already got one right here, but I can create a brand new one here, put it into a resource group, region, give it a name, Cleveland. This is OpenAI, pricing tier, standard. And this creates something that I can use. I can specify restricted to certain networks, and that's fine. I can add tags. This is just for reporting purposes. If I want to filter it and come in here and create one. This takes a little while to create, so I'm not going to actually run it. Instead, I'll go back and select this right here. This is one that I created a while ago, and there's this Azure OpenAI Studio. And Azure OpenAI Studio, it does have a thing where it'll walk you through that, the steps when you go in here. And the models, there are models, there's a GPT models, there's a playground where you can test things. You can add your own data files to it. And in here, you can come in here and get started by creating a chatbot, for example. And your system mesh here, you are an AI assistant that helps you find information. Just tell it what it can do. Maybe you're more specific than that. Maybe you're specifically designed to help people write JavaScript code. You can specify which models to use. These are actually defined under the deployments right here. So I've got a deployment called DGTest GPT-3.5 Studio, which is using GPT-3.5. I've got another one that uses GPT-4. And so if I go back to this, I can specify which one of these I want to use. Maybe I want to use GPT-4. I'll just stick with the 3.5 Turbo, and I can add sections in here with examples. I can add variables. So if I wanted to, when I'm at design time, I wanted to do it in one language, but at runtime on another language, I could do that. And then I could give it examples of questions and answers, so it gets an idea of the types of things to ask, or you can just use the default here. And there is a little playground here that allows you to start doing this. This is just using the web right now. I say hello, it says, hello, how can I assist you today? And I'll say, write a poem about responsible AI, 3 to 5 stanzas. Let's see if that works. Look at that, that's really fast. And so it generated, this is a poem that hasn't been seen before, but it knows what poems look like. It knows what responsible AI will look like, and it made it rhyme as poems tend to do. And this is something that's really cool in here. Is here you can add your own data. You come in here and add a data source, and that data source can be pointing to Azure AI Search or something in Azure Blob Storage or Cosmos DB, Elasticsearch as a third-party tool, a web address, or just uploading files. So let me upload some files. I'm not sure how long this will take, but it has to, when I upload them, I have to put it into a blob storage account. So I have to tell it where that blob storage account should be. I'll throw it in here. And need your permission to access that? Yep, I give you permission. And Azure AI Search resource, so I need to have that. Let's do that right here. And free tier is not supported. Please select another one. Okay, so whoops. Why'd you do that? Stop that. Let's take, well, come on. Why can you change it? Here, how about refresh? There we go. So maybe this one is not free. Let's see if that works. There we go. Give it a name. I'll say it Cleveland Index. And I can specify vector searching, but I don't want to do that. Next here, and drag and drop some files. And I actually have some files. I'll just drag a few of them here. Save. Yeah, I've got a few files here. These are just reviews I throw on my blog, things like book reviews and concert reviews and theater reviews. I'll just grab a few of these because I don't want it to take too long to index them. It will take a finite amount of time to index. Uploaded them very quickly. Semantic search versus keyword search. Semantic search does take a little bit longer and it's a little bit more expensive, but I'll go next. Next, I'll just take the defaults here and it should fail to validate the vector authentication. Azure AI Services has disabled RBAC. Oh, I've got to go back and do that. Shoot. Can I? Oh, let's just do this. Let's just do keyword search instead. How about that? System. Oh, how about that? API key instead. Save and close. Oh, that worked. And then ingestion is in progress. It's already uploaded them. It's indexing them right now. In fact, it's actually queued it up for indexing. So once I've done that, then I can start asking questions like, recommend a good book for me, or tell me about this play, because it understands the things that I've written in some of these things. So here's a review I wrote. I went to see a musical called Ain't Misbehavin', and I wrote a brief review of that. And so it would understand that. It's one of the ones that I do. And we're gonna have to wait. So it depends on how busy it is, and it's all queued up. But the idea behind that is that I can, all right, this might take too long. So let me see, I think I've got another one that I created a little while ago. Let me see if I can do that. I'll go back into the Azure portal. And I'll look for OpenAI right here. There's one here, and I'll go to OpenAI Studio here. And I think I've got under deployments, I've got this and chat. Let's see if I can do, where is that? It still hasn't started indexing. It's going to take a while for this to index, it looks like. Oh, it's processing. 10 of 10 files in progress. But it's just taking too long. 0%. Wait, is it done? I think it's done. All right, how about this? How about recommend a book for me? Come on. There it goes. All right, and so I recommended a few books because I've got, these are all, I reviewed these books and I have a brief summary of them. Should I see Ain't Misbehavin'? That was the play that I reviewed. And it'll probably look at it. I gave it a favorable review. So based on that, it's a musical review, features 31 songs, blah, blah, blah. I particularly called out this guy. And it says, yeah, if you're a fan of Fats Waller's music, go see it. Awesome. So yeah, this is stuff that's maybe wouldn't be available. It's specifically answering questions based on the documents that I uploaded. And then if you want to, you can deploy this to a web app, and this wizard will walk you through it. It's very cool. If you wanted to write your own code to do this, here's the code to do it. Here it is in Python. It will connect to this search. You'd have to add your API key in here. If you're not comfortable with Python, maybe you'd rather have it in C#. There's the C# code to that. In fact, there is my API key, which I can just copy and paste into my application as well. So all kinds of cool stuff in here. And let's see, I think that's good stuff. I think I've been talking for over an hour. Are there any questions yet?
No, you're going good. Please continue.
Okay. All right, let me look at my slides and see if there's something else that I want you to. If I go into Copilot Studio or I go into Azure AI Studio, those are all pretty similar. That was the middle one that I showed you. The Azure AI Studio contains more information. So for example, you wouldn't just get the GPT models, you might get the some of the models from some of the Phi models and some of the models that are created by Meta and things like that. And then the AI services, if those are all, I'll just show them to you right here in, where's my portal? Back here. I'll just portal.azure.com. Almost everything starts in the portal. You'll have to, it doesn't have to be in the portal. You could actually do it through code if you wanted to. You could do it through PowerShell or CI. Azure AI Service. These are the Azure AI services, and I've got one right here, but you can see things like Azure AI Searches in there, custom vision and speech, language services, translations, document intelligence, all sorts of things that you can do to use the power of artificial intelligence, often with just a few simple API calls. They really democratize this idea of using the power of AI without writing a lot of tools and without having a lot of compute power. All right, I think that's a good stopping point. And if there are, I'll pause for about 30 seconds for any more questions, and otherwise I'm going to hand it back to Sam.
Just one question, David. So let's say, like, actually, if I want to, so in the end, we are going to get a API endpoint.
Correct.
That is
yeah.
what.
Are you talking about like the AI services?
Correct.
Yeah, I do have. Let me see. I did do some stuff with intelligence, and it does have an API endpoint. So this one right here, there is an endpoint right there. You see it right here, and you also have an API key as well that you'll use to connect to that.
Sure. Okay.
And this one actually does have a playground here, Document Intelligence Studio. So you can upload documents and train it on those documents. Or there are pre-built models. So if you just want to use the pre-built model for invoices, then you have to use their invoices. But in all likelihood, you'll have your own format of what an invoice looks like. You can upload those, train it on your invoices. All right,
excellent.
Thanks, Josh. Back to you, Sam. Thank you.
Well done, David, as always. Anyone have any last-minute questions or comments for David?
Oh, let me give you the one thing before. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Oh, if you want these slides, go ahead right here. Either type in that URL or just take a picture of that barcode. And I'm going to switch away really quickly because there are some resources right here with lots of other links. Welcome to use that as well. So if you have this, then you'll have those other links as well.
Excellent. And I will post that on my blog as well.
Great.
Appreciate it. Thanks again. And if you don't mind, I'll take back the screen for just a moment. All right, so if you look over in your chat window, you'll see that there's a couple links that have been pasted in. And basically, there's a link for the YouTube channel. And if you would please subscribe to that to get upload notifications once this recording is edited and uploaded. In addition, Tech events, as well as links to David's slides, are going to be posted on my blog, and you can subscribe to that to get upload notifications as well. And last but not least, the link to the feedback eval form. If you would, please take a moment to fill that out, and we can provide David with some constructive criticism. Also, if you're in the job market, I invite you to check out devitjobs.com. It's a unique website that offers you the ability to search on different technologies, location, and whether it's remote or in-person type of job, and allows you all these various filters. So if you have a moment or if you're in the job market, feel free to check that out. Again, that's devitjobs.com. Lastly, my contact information, snasser@nistechnologies.com. And you can find all my social links on Linktree/Sam Nasser. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I invite you to do so. And so with that, thanks again to David for a great presentation, and thanks to all who attended, and look forward to seeing you all next month. Good night, everyone.